In today's video, we are going to be talking about the iPhone 16 Pro and everything that you need to know to get started creating content with the phone and mobile content creation in general. So with that, let's jump on into today's video. We're going to be kicking things off at Harborfront to explain some of the ideas in today's video, while of course walking through things in studio. So I'm very excited. So probably the number one question I get asked is, how do you shoot your content? And a lot of the times it would surprise people to know that I actually film a lot of the content that you see on my travel focused Instagram feed with a phone. And there's a few reasons for that. One of the main reasons is simply convenience. A lot of the times my content is filmed in crazy weather conditions. Lately, it's been extreme cold, like minus 30 degrees Celsius, which is literally unbearable. But the way I've gotten around that is by actually shooting content with my iPhone 16 Pro. That said, nothing will really replace the physics of a lens, and 100% a mirrorless camera still looks better in my eyes, but definitely the lines are getting closer and closer together on quality. But of course, you can't get quality visuals without quality settings. So before we can jump into anything, we need to talk about your phone's settings for optimal quality. All right, so the first thing we need to talk about is what exactly are we shooting our videos in? All of my videos that I shoot on Instagram are shot in 4K in the native camera app. The reason why is because we want to be recording our footage at the highest resolution possible. Because when it comes to enabling ProRes, RAW, or log recording and the HDR settings, we're going to enable the option to be there, but we're not going to actively use it. Secondary to that, I like to leave my ProRes on because when I'm shooting, I tend to actually switch to log every so often. And this allows me to get flat picture profile video images that I can basically color grade myself if I think the color grading is wonky or if things are looking a little bit flat. In terms of stabilization, I actually turn my enhanced stabilization on. This is going to ensure that my handheld footage is smooth, especially if I'm walking or running gunning things with one hand or needing to keep things steady. In terms of frame rate, I'm actively shooting in 30 frames per second. And this is because I find that 24 frames per second with the iPhone looks a little bit choppy. This is a personal preference. Some people are, forever supporters of 24 frames per second. I think 30 looks best when it comes to these iPhones. Another thing that I like to do is to go to my preserve settings. This way that every time I use the camera app, my settings remain the same, especially to how I change them. I also love to leave my grid lines on in order to ensure that I'm shooting things steady and with good horizons, also to provide me with references to valid points of interest as I'm capturing things. Because if you know the rule of thirds and compositions, that's the perfect way to go about doing it. The last thing I'll add about video is to ensure that your videos are being shot in high efficiency. This is going to reduce the file sizes of your videos and ensure that when you upload them to Instagram, you're compressing your footage and making your files a little bit smaller so that Instagram doesn't compress them and result in pixelation. Once again, this is literally the most important thing we can be doing with our phones. For the camera mode, we can jump onto location. The only thing I'll say before we do is that turn your Fusion camera on before you do anything else. That way you have access to native focal lengths that look the most pleasing to the eye when you're capturing your photos. Okay, so the good news is then that the photo settings are actually a lot easier to change and do. We're gonna grab a shot of the city skyline and I'm gonna tell you exactly the camera settings that I had here so that you can replicate them. Number one, I have the iPhone 16 Pro, so we want to have the 48 megapixel sensor turned on. We're gonna have all custom photographic styles turned off. You can do this later on or implement them as you've sort of played with them and learned, but I like to shoot everything in RAW. So we're gonna turn our RAW styles on. We're gonna shoot at the 0.5x lens, but that's literally all you need to worry about for your photos. Generally use your largest camera sensor on your 0.5 or your 1x if you're using the 16 Pro. Shoot in RAW, and then you're basically good to go most of the time. All right, so with the settings out of the way, I want to show you a few more things you need to know about your iPhone 16 Pro as you're making your content if you want to make sure you can get the most out of your footage. I've already grabbed a few clips at sunrise just because I knew we were going to miss the light if I set up and did everything. So I'm going to put those on the screen right now so that you can get a better idea of what that looked like, because it's time to talk about mastering exposure and composition with your iPhone. All right, now first things first though, what camera app do you need to use if you're shooting with your iPhone? There are a ton of different options out there, but I actually don't think you need to download a different camera app than the one you have in your phone already. I use the iPhone's native camera app now for pretty much everything. I've started doing that with the iPhone 15 already. Previous to that, I was using the Moment camera app, which is a really great app, all things considered. If you want to get that little extra kick of phone settings and different creative capabilities out of the app, but I don't think it's necessary really at all. But right now, we're going to open up the camera app in our phone. And as you can see, I have my grid lines turned on. Now, one clip that I really like here is of the sun hitting over the water. And I'm just going to put it in the 0.5x and get a quick clip. I'm going to hit the focus area over top of the sun, and I'm going to lock my focus and exposure there. Now, if you notice, I also have at the top left of my iPhone minus 0.7. That's the exposure rating of my iPhone because I like to slightly underexpose the images to ensure I'm getting the highlights and then adding a little bit of contrast into my shots. And so let's say now we're going to go and film this boat that's in front of me. I can change my underexposure, overexposure if I really want to. I can put it to plus 0.7 if I want, if I feel like maybe the shadow areas of the boat on the right-hand side aren't what I want to see. Or I can even move it lower if I think I want to make it really moody and dynamic. This negative exposure feature is what a lot of creators use to create that undersaturated, moody look that is like really popular on Instagram Reels. And it just really adds a little bit more punch to your iPhone footage instead of it looking flat like it typically does. So I like negative 0.3 for this one, just because the shadow area is a little bit dark. So I'm going to grab a clip and I'm just going to add a little bit of movement by swaying side to side as well. It's that simple. All right, the next thing to mention is the camera lenses. There's a few different options available to us now. We've got the 0.5, we've got the 1x, we've got the 2x, and then we've got the 5x on the new iPhone 16 Pros. There's a few general rules of thumb you need to follow when it comes to actually creating with these different lenses. The 0.5 and the 1x are going to be your highest quality camera lenses from now on. And that's because both of them have a dedicated phone sensor that have the 48 megapixel capabilities, meaning that you also have the ability to shoot native to those sensors, leading to higher quality footage. The 2x camera sensor lens is a 12 megapixel camera lens. And this just has a slightly lower resolution. It's not too big of a deal, but the 5x is actually a digital zoom. And so even though there's some sort of digital trickery that they've done in the iPhone to lead the 5x to still have very good camera quality, in terms of ranking the iPhone camera lenses and what their capabilities are, the 1x is still the best, then it's 0.5, then it's 2x, then it's 5x. So as we're shooting our content, we want to make sure we're using our camera lenses, yes, to fit the situation that we're shooting in, but also to maximize quality. And I would say that 90% of what I shoot is actually with the 1x, maybe 80%, but for sure it's high is with the 1x. And then compositionally, I'll either default to the 0.5 or the 2x lens to get my shots. I very rarely actually use the 5x on my iPhone 16 Pro, simply because the camera quality is just not quite there. All right, so a good example of this is the composition that we have behind me. There's a 0.5x composition here that I want to get of me walking up this ramp here towards the CN Tower, so you have a better idea about what I'm talking about. Okay, the last thing we need to talk about then is gear, because everybody seems to need a mobile tripod, and what I'm using is the Yukos tripod. I believe that's how it's pronounced. This thing is awesome, super lightweight, place it anywhere, and is remarkably stable. I will only say that it tends to wave in the wind a little bit, but everything else about it I absolutely love. The second thing that we need to talk about is obviously the mics. Again, if you watch my gear video, you'll know that my favorite mics are the DJI Mic 2s, and so easy to use. They literally just pop right into the bottom of your iPhone, and then you have not only a transmitter, but you also have super high quality mics that you can take advantage of. These things are awesome. They sound amazing. You actually listen to these the entire video while we were out shooting today, because it was connected to my DJI Pocket 3, which I am also a big fan of. We can make a separate video about that. That is literally my go-to accessories for iPhone content creation. So with that, we're gonna end today's video here. This is a getting started guide to creating content for social media. I hope that this helped you out. And if it did, be sure to drop a like. Let me know what other questions you're wondering about for mobile content creation. And with that, I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.